The Witcher 3 is a game that shook the industry when it released. Critics were giving it rave reviews, fans of new and old were loving it, and it even managed to win Game of the Year back in 2015. But is it still worth playing 9 years later in 2024? Well, that's what I am to discuss in this video. So without further ado, let's discuss how The Witcher 3 holds up 9 years later and if you should be picking it up in 2024. Alright, now before we get into talking about gameplay and story elements, I just want to really quickly talk about the visuals. Now, as you may or may not know, The Witcher 3 got a next-gen update in 2022. Now, in my opinion, The Witcher 3 has always been a pretty game even before the remaster, but now this game is just downright gorgeous. I'd say this game looks just as good as AAA games coming out today. The visual fidelity is really good and the art style is amazing on top of that. The update also added ray tracing, but it can only run on 30 FPS on console and you need a very beefy computer to run ray tracing. If you're on PS5 or Xbox Series X, you either get a performance mode which is 60 FPS or a ray tracing mode which is 30 FPS. I personally far prefer 60 FPS over 30 FPS, but it's your choice at the end of the day. One thing to mention though is that ray tracing, while being hard to run on PC, can also have some weird bugs. Now, I'm not a game designer, that should be very apparent, but the bugs might be caused by switching the game from the DX11 to the DX12 architecture. The game was originally built on DX11 and DX11 can't support ray tracing, so it might be because of the transfer that the ray tracing was bugging a little bit. But yeah, overall the game looks amazing in 2024, and in my opinion, it always looked amazing even since it released in 2015. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the combat in this game. Now, throughout my playthrough, I really love the combat in The Witcher 3. The animations are good, the magic is entertaining, and I overall just thought it was a really satisfying system. But I did like fighting monsters a lot more than I liked fighting humans. Like, don't get me wrong, slicing through pirates in a bandit camp is fun, but I'd much rather go through my bestiary and get oils and find a much more creative solution of taking a monster down. Alchemy is another great thing in this game's combat system. Now, alchemy can be very confusing at first, but eventually the system becomes very rewarding and good. If this video does well, I might make a beginner's guide to The Witcher 3, let me know if you guys would want to see that. But then again, some players won't even use the alchemy system. That's because if you're playing on anything lower than the Blood and Broken Bones difficulty, alchemy is not really necessary for killing monsters. And this is one pretty big issue I have with the game's combat system, because if you just play the game on easy or normal, you wouldn't even need to engage with the alchemy system. And it's really fun and engaging gameplay mechanics you can just completely skip over. Why would you ever read up your bestiary to hunt down monsters when you can just hunt them down without looking at the oils needed to kill them at all? You can just kill them. That's why when people beat the game on normal, I always recommend they go back and play it on Death March, because if you only play it on normal, you get a whole new experience with the game by playing on the highest difficulty. Now, one other criticism people have with the game is that Geralt feels too floaty. Now, I can kind of see where this criticism is coming from, because when he's going around, he doesn't really look like he has too much weight to him in fights. His combat feels like more of a dance than an actual fighting style. However, I kind of like this because the author describes Geralt in the books as having a Witcher's dance, fighting more like a dancing style than an actual fighting style. So this is kind of just Geralt's lore accurate fighting stance, but I don't know, it's still a little bit weird. So yeah, The Witcher 3's combat system is a little bit rough around the edges, but I'd overall say it's a great combat system that'll have you hooked for the whole game. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the story of The Witcher 3. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler free as possible, but if you want to go in completely blind, I'd recommend skipping this part of the video. So essentially, this game revolves around you tracking down and finding your daughter Ciri. Now, this may make the story sound like just a wild goose chase, but trust me, it is much more than that. You do epic quests, hunt down monsters, and go through the whole world. You also fight the Wild Hunt, but they're more in the end of the game, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. I do have one complaint with The Witcher 3's story, though. Well, not really with the story, but more of the story missions. The stories being told in the missions are really good, but some of the content you do inside of the story missions can be a little bit boring, in my opinion. But the dialogue courses are really cool, and they end up impacting the people in the quests and just the whole world in general. It's pretty cool. The narrative is also extremely lengthy. It took me about 70 hours to beat it, but I know most people are probably going to beat it faster. I just really took my time and did a lot of the quests. Speaking of quests, some of the side quests in this game are some of the best quests in any game, period. They're really good. It's one of those games where you can just spend hours and hours doing side quests and Witcher contracts and completely ignoring the main quest of the game. Also, if you finish the game and you want more, The Witcher 3 has 2 DLC expansions, that being Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. Now, if you enjoyed the original Witcher 3, I'd highly recommend picking these up. They add like 40 hours of content to the game, and they're actually really good from a narrative and gameplay aspect. So yeah, overall I really love The Witcher 3's main story. It's probably one of, if not the best parts of the game. Alright, now it's time to talk about the open world aspect of The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3's open world is split into 3 main parts. You have White Orchard, which is the very early game. You have Velen, which is the early to mid game. And you have Skellige, which is the late to end game. If you're wondering, the footage you're seeing right now is from Skellige. I actually really like that the game is split up like this because it offers changes of scenery every 20 hours or so. And with every change of scenery, you're also going to be fighting different beasts in the open world. For example, once you get to Skellige, that you can find things like Cyclopses and white bears, and it's actually very cool. There are also 2 regions of the game I did not mention, and that is Kaer Morhen, which is basically just the Witcher school, and Toussaint, which is basically just the open world for the Blood and Wine DLC. Now, the reason I didn't mention these 2 parts is because Kaer Morhen is quite small, and unless you buy the Blood and Wine DLC, I have no idea if you're able to access Toussaint at all. So I've been talking about all these different open worlds. Well, how do you traverse them? Well, you mainly use your horse Roach to get around. Now, I've heard people say that Roach feels clunky, and in many cases that is true, but it's not really a big deal most of the time. In Forest, he can definitely clip on things a lot of the time, but on designated horse paths, he's fine. Also, this game uses the 40-second rule really well for the open world. Now, if you're wondering what the 40-second rule is, it's basically something the developers of this game spoke of. It's that every 40 seconds in an open world, you need to see something, otherwise you're going to get distracted and you're not going to have fun in the open world. So basically, every 40 seconds, you're going to find a point of interest in this game, and it does actually make for a really engaging and fun open world experience. So yeah, I love this game's open world, and it's really engaging the whole way through. I don't think you'll find it boring at all. Alright, it's conclusion time. Do I recommend The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in 2024? Now, as you might be able to tell from me absolutely glazing this game, yes, I do recommend it. If you're a fan of fantasy games or just RPGs in general, I highly recommend you give this game a try. It has a riveting story, a beautiful open world, and amazing characters that'll keep you hooked the whole 70 hours. Well, it probably won't take you 70 hours, but I love this game so much it took me 70 hours to complete the 50-hour main story. The one thing is, though, if you're getting into this game in 2024, it doesn't explain its mechanics the best, and I was a little lost on my first playthrough. So I would highly recommend checking out a beginner's guide to this game. I might even make a beginner's guide to this game in the following weeks. Alright, that was my video on should you buy The Witcher 3 in 2024. This is the first should you buy video on this channel. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I'm gonna make more of them. If you didn't, then alright, you can just say that in the comments below. I'm gonna make a beginner's guide to The Witcher 3 in the following weeks. If you guys would want to see that, give me a comment below. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, a great week, and I'll see you guys next week with another video. Goodbye.